Hi, it's me again, Jack Wallen, and I'm here to talk to you about something. So, before I get into the actual topic at hand, I wanted to mention something, uh, mostly because someone in the comments of one of my last sorry, I don't know why I said that, my last video, they, it was a very, very kind and wonderful comment wherein they said, I'm paraphrasing here, they said, set aside your need to be entertained and pay attention to what I'm saying. And that really struck me. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for saying that because you get what I'm doing here. When I started this, so when I very first started creating these videos, was it 10 years ago, maybe? The original intent was it started out as a little series called Me and My Muse. Should sound familiar. And the goal was very simple. I was trying to find a unique way to market my books. And so I started off with the intention was to have a conversation with my muse. And you can go back, way back, and watch those original videos, and they're terrible. But the intent was earnest. And that eventually evolved into me having more general conversation with my muse about art and about how challenging it can be being an artist and the ways in which we can overcome those challenges. And it kept continuing to go down that road and broaden a little bit, such that it also became a way for me to try to help people just survive life. And I think that it really came into its own during the pandemic. And I branched off and I did a podcast with a wonderful friend of mine called The Artistic Heart. And that was really the focus of how we could help other artists survive the pandemic, because so much of the arts came to a close, came to a screeching halt during that period. And it was over the past 10 years that I realized how that there was a need, especially in the artistic communities, for help. And, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a trained actor. That's it. I have an MFA in acting. But I also have this desire to help people. And so the longer I've been doing these videos, the more they became about helping people. So I'm not here. I'm not here to entertain. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a comedian, and I'm not someone who gets on Facebook to bash other people, hoping to get likes and views and go viral. That's not what I'm here for. Maybe I try to entertain. I try to make you laugh, very often at my own expense. But that's not my goal. That's not who I am. I am here to help. Sometimes I think I succeed, and sometimes I probably miss the mark a bit, but the intention is always there. And yes, sometimes the help really does focus on being an artist of all sorts, and sometimes it does spread out to being a regular human. But I also firmly believe that the things that I often talk about with regards to art and being an artist and performing and doing art translates to being a human. Because, I mean, let's face it, artists are human, right? So again, I want to thank that viewer for pointing that out and getting it. Because if you want to be entertained, there's plenty of ways to do that. If you want to watch someone lash out at other people, make fun of people, you're not going to find that here. Again, I'll make fun of myself, but I've earned that right. Okay, enough about that. What I want to talk about right now is very, it's at the heart of my existence right now. And that art doesn't just happen. I know that. I know that sounds obvious. I mean, you can't take a canvas, put it on an easel, and then set a brush and some paint next to it and hope that magic happens and the painting will just appear. You have to actually do it. But here's the thing, it's more than that. And this kind of stems from the very reason why I decided to create the Me and My Muse project. And part of that reason was because I didn't see the kind of theater happening in the community in which I live that excited me. And no matter how long I sat around and waited for other theater companies to either choose shows that excited me or develop shows that excited me, it just wasn't happening. There was one instance where one of the local theater companies decided to do a show that really excited me, but then, and I got cast in the show in a role that I really wanted to do, but then the theater company closed, so it never happened. And since then, it's been, quite frankly, and I've said this before, it's been a lot of theater companies doing the same shows that theater companies have done over and over and over again, maybe with a little twist or not. I mean, how many times can a theater company do Hello, Dolly? Or Oklahoma? Or Brigadoon? You name it. So I decided that if a project was going to happen that really, really spoke to me, I was probably going to have to make it happen. And so I did. And I'm working very hard on it, spending a lot of time, investing a lot of money, and with fingers crossed that it will be successful. Now, one quick update is that when I originally came up with the idea for Me and My Muse, the idea was it was, you know, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid of theater and television. That's really how I'm selling it, and it's also episodic. So there will be more than one episode of the show. But the original idea was I wanted to have a lot of multimedia going on, but I wanted to not just like slides and sound and things like that. I knew that there was going to be video, that there's going to be flashbacks on a projected screen, and other various and sundry scenes. But there was one other element that I wanted to make happen. And I felt it was really important to the idea of the project because it really would give the audience the feeling that they weren't just going to watch a typical theatrical production, that it was almost like they were a live studio audience for a television show. And to do that, my idea was to have a live cameraman on stage, being able to get close-ups and shoot shots that the audience wouldn't normally be able to see, and all sorts of fun stuff. And then when I started realizing the project, I thought, well, that's a little too hard. I don't want to add that level of complexity to it because it's already hard enough. And then when we had the read through, I mentioned the idea to everybody, and they were like, oh, that would take it to the next level, and they were all really excited about it. So I thought, okay, well, let's see if we can make it happen. And I found a device made by Teradek. I can't remember the name of it exactly. It's essentially what it is. It's a transmitter and a receiver. You plug the transmitter into your camera, and then you plug the receiver into a monitor or a projector or whatever, and it can project what comes out of the camera up to 750 feet with zero lag, or almost zero lag. So I bought one thinking, well, if it doesn't work, I can send it back, whatever. And it works perfectly. So it looks like that's actually going to happen. And I'm really excited about that because, again, I want to elevate this project as much as I can. I want to set it apart from what the audiences here are used to seeing, because I want this to be unique, and I want this to be exciting, and I want it to be a project that other artists are going to want to be a part of. And I want to also show the theater community in this town that they don't just have to do the same old shows over and over again. But to do that, I had to make it happen. Now, think about it. Think about this. William Shakespeare was listed in the first folio as one of the primary actors in almost all of those plays. It's pretty easy to draw a conclusion that Shakespeare was writing plays that he wanted to do and roles that he wanted to play. Shakespeare made it happen. Imagine, if you will, that good old Billy sat around and said, I wish someone would do a show that I wanted to be a part of. But it just doesn't seem to want to happen. I'm sitting here in my home, reading the paper, and I'm seeing audition notices for this and that and the other thing. And there's just nothing I'm interested in. So what's an actor to do? I know. I'll write something. I'll write a show, a script that I want to be a part of. And I'll write the role that I want to play. Huzzah. And that's essentially what happened. And it used to be that way a lot. Even in the 60s and 70s, when you had these theater companies that were essentially pushing the envelope of what the arts are. You know, when we went through that absurdist theater, which was wonderful, trend, and you would have these companies of artists that would get together, and they wouldn't have a script. They would just say, okay, we're going to create something. It almost became like guerrilla theater, where they would get together, they would improv these scenes, and then eventually a kernel of a story would happen, and then they would start writing it down, and then next thing you know, they had a script, and they were excited about it, and they said, okay, let's take this to the next level. Let's memorize it and perform it, and that was how a lot of really exciting theater happened, because people made it happen. And for a long time, I was one of those. I sat around and just waited for a theater company to do a show that I wanted to do with a role that I could play. And the longer I waited, the more frustrated I got. And it was just a recursive little nightmare that was never ending. And it was the same thing as a writer. And I've gone through this quite often, where I'm finished reading something, and I'll have my Kindle, and I'm looking through the Kindle store, and I'm like, nothing's really appealing to me. I just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Nothing. Scrolling and scrolling. It's like, well, I guess I would have to write the book that I want to read. And I have literally done that on a number of, when I wrote Clockwork Cabaret, I had read a bunch of steampunk novels, and yes, there are some wonderful steampunk novels out there, but I read a lot of them that were just like, it just seems like people were rehashing the same thing over and over again. Like, well, I want to read something different. So I wrote Clockwork Cabaret. And it's sometimes it's very fulfilling to create art for that reason. Because you wanted it. Because it was something that you wanted to consume, something you wanted to read, or something you wanted to watch, or something you wanted to hear, and it didn't exist. And imagine if over the centuries that artists didn't make it happen, if they all just waited around for someone else to do it. Would we have all those glorious compositions by Mozart? Would we have all those plays by Shakespeare or Chekhov or Ibsen? Would we have all those movies by Spielberg? Spielberg is a great example. He made it happen. And then he became Steven Spielberg. So you never know. And I was just talking to my wife about a half an hour ago about the Me and My Muse project, and I said, and I don't usually say things like this because it's just not who I am, but I said to her, wouldn't it be really exciting if the Me and My Muse project, somebody got wind of it, saw it, and decided they wanted to bring it to New York or LA, and that really I love that idea. Of course, if that were to happen, I'd be like, okay, yes, it can happen, but we're keeping the same cast and the same crew and the same director and all that. I'm not going to, you can lure me to New York, but you're not going to do so just to take my project away from me. No, this is my project. This is my baby. I created it. I am the I am the one that makes the decisions. Yeah, well, except when we're in rehearsal and there's a director, that's when I go, okay, I defer to you, because I'm not going to be that playwright and that actor. And I've already decided that once we go into rehearsal, I'm just going to say, okay, director, this is it's in your hands now, and I'm, unless there's something that's glaring that needs my attention, I'm just going to be an actor. And I even thought today when I was out for a run, I thought, okay, it's going to be challenging with the live cameraman on stage. So I'm just going to have to defer to the director and say, okay, you're the one that's going to have to dictate how this works, because you're the one seeing it. I can't see it. I'm on stage. I can't see what's happening. But it's one of those projects that has been baking in my mind for so long, and eventually it was just like, I just have to make it happen. I just have to do this. And I think it's important for anyone out there who is involved in the arts in any way that you understand that you have to be active. You have to be, and I hate to use this word because you have to be proactive. You have to be willing to make those leaps of faith to create something. And sometimes I know it's scary. I was scared to death about this project, just the very first stages of this project. Before we had the read through, I was just like a nervous wreck because it wasn't just the read through, it was also the filming of the scenes, and I knew I had to edit the scenes. I had to do all of this stuff to make this thing happen. And if it didn't happen, if it failed, it's on me. And that right there is the thing that prevents so many people from doing what I'm doing. They are afraid of failure. But here's the thing. Imagine if Shakespeare was afraid of failing. Imagine if Mozart was afraid of failing. Imagine if Spielberg was afraid of failing. We would not have so many wonderful things if those artists suffered from those fears. So what I want to say to you today is that you need to have faith in your art. You need to trust your abilities. And you need to take that leap of faith. And I know it's scary because I've been there so many times. But if you're willing to make that leap of faith, wonderful things can happen. And if you're not willing to make it, those wonderful things are not going to happen. That's it. And ladies and gentlemen, someone's at my door, and I probably better go answer it. So what I'm going to say to you today is thank you very much for giving me a moment of your attention, because I know that time is precious. But please, just have faith in yourself and be willing to take those risks, those artistic risks, okay? Because happy accidents are the way to make some serious magic. Anyway, I hope you and everyone you know and love have a wonderful, wonderful day.